Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are. Welcome to this coming episode of Scaling in APAC. We are very excited to introduce to you, for those of you who are here with us for the first time. I'm sure there are recurring visitors to this program of ours already. But just to share with those of you on the program who are visiting us the first time. So it is a show put together by MediaShock and Scaler. And our goal here is to empower organizations and founders who are keen to grow in this diverse market in APAC. And we want to harness the knowledge of those who have walked the talk, who have really gotten real battle scars, and help you shorten the learning curve so that you can succeed faster and better in this market. So if you are exploring to grow in Southeast Asia or the larger APAC markets, maybe you're currently situated in the US or in Europe. We want to use these experiences of the esteemed speakers that we have invited so that they can help you bring your innovative ideas out there and succeed in this area of the world. Right, so I'm very, very happy to have this very influential Angmo in Colin, who partnered with me to put together this series. So I'll leave Colin to do his shameless plug in case some of you who may not already know who this very famous Angmo is.
Fantastic introduction. So apparently I'm Singapore's #1 Angmo. My name is Colin. I am a serial entrepreneur. I am involved in several businesses, but my main business, Scaler, which is my extremely tight t-shirt, and I will go get one size up at some juncture. We specialize in helping technology companies to scale. We work with venture capital, we work with accelerators, we work with governments, and we work with standalone startups to help them to break into new markets, break even as fast as humanly possible, and make money, because as we say in Southeast Asia, no money,
no honey.
Exactly right. So our specialization being helping with recruitment, helping with go-to-market, as well as helping in building out advisory boards that help to open up and scale in new regions. And I'm really excited to also be sitting here with MediaShock, as when it comes to scaling into a new region, look, you need the personnel, you need the go-to-market, but you also need the brand awareness and the field marketing. So to give a shameless plug to, I don't know what the inverse of Angmo is.
The yellow skin Singaporean, the homegrown, right? So I'm happy to introduce a little bit more about MediaShock. MediaShock essentially helps tech companies communicate your complex ideas. A lot of times we have worked with clients who have very innovative and very complex ideas that they're bringing and solutions they're bringing. But besides the technical engineers on the other end, no one really understands. And decision makers may not always be technical. So our job is to help you break down this complex into interesting and engaging materials. It could be marketing materials, it could be educational materials, so that it helps shorten the curve of getting to know you, love you, and eventually buy from you. In the aspects of today's session, we help a lot in the content localization side of things. So obviously we do this across multiple languages, multiple markets. And I choose to think we can do it pretty fast, quick, and good. So that's a little bit of a shameless plug for us. So today we have Steve Dawson upcoming, but to those out there, if there's someone else you like or some other topics that you like to learn on scaling in APAC, please refer yourself to us or refer someone you know so that we can get them on the show as well. Right. So today's topic is all about international expansion, especially in APAC. So I think this is a topic that's very, very close to your heart because you have done a lot of this in just the last couple of months, right? So could you share with us a little bit of your own experience in expanding out from where your home market is?
Yeah, absolutely. So, funnily enough, our home market is now Singapore, but absolutely. Our business model is to help companies to expand internationally. And I guess it kind of adds to the credibility that we've been able to do the same thing ourselves. I've worked with about 170 technology companies that have scaled overseas. As a company, we've worked with something like 48 unicorns, So you start seeing the overlapping patterns between what it is that works and where it is that companies fail. To be completely honest, and I know that it's probably biased coming from me, but international expansion is not a particularly hard thing. It's just a formula. It's just a methodology of being able to do it. And it typically comes down to, before you invest the money, get yourself the partnerships, get yourself the brand exposure, establish some traction in that market first of all by leveraging strategic partners, growing your brand name, and then you start capitalizing and growing and scaling. And I guess for that reason, I'm very, very excited to introduce our guest, so Steve Timothy Dawson, STD for short. No, I'm just joking. I love you, Steve. Who's the founder and CEO of Asia Market Entry, who I'd have to say is one of the most knowledgeable people on the world of Asia market entry. He works quite closely with a number of chambers of governments in Asia, in particular with the Singapore government. He's someone that was an enterprise sales rep that moved over here to effectively grow and scale an international business from the sales perspective. And he's someone who I have a huge amount of admiration for and what he's been able to achieve. So we're very much looking forward to Steve sharing his learning experiences as someone who's also worked with a significant amount of companies. Anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, and Steve's backstory is really interesting. He's someone who has kind of walked the talk, had faced the same problems that people on the call or people on this show would probably be looking to solve. And I love guest speakers like this because this is exactly why we have the guest speakers in our shows, because they are not people who have lots of theoretical experience.
Yep.
They are people who have done real battles and learned it the hard way. Yeah. So you will get lots of shortcuts when you attend our shows.
Pretty much. And I guess success leaves clues. It's copying what other successful businesses have been able to do. Not needing to, I know it sounds quite obvious, but it's like not needing to necessarily reinvent the wheel. Steve and I have spoken about this ad nauseum, that there's always a certain set of mistakes that companies make when they try to expand into a region. One of them, which is obvious between us, and that's not localizing your content, not localizing your strategy. You need to also convert the messaging to be able to tailor it to what the local audience is asking for. But the other one is the go-to-market strategy. How do people buy? In Asia, the way that buying happens is different to in other markets, where culturally people buy on hierarchy, they buy on social proof, which is quite different to, let's say, in Australia or in America, where it's solution selling and it's buying based on rapport. So yeah, I guess without further ado, it's something that I'm really looking forward to, and hearing from our friend Big Bad Steve.
Hello, my name's Steve Dawson, and I'm the founder of Asia Market Entry. Asia Market Entry is a company that I founded 10 years ago here in Singapore with the intention to help technology companies grow revenue in the Asia Pacific region. So what happens when we talk about readiness for Asia? Well, Asia is no small task. And the first really challenging question to all companies looking to come to this region is, are you truly ready to expand? One of the core pieces of this is, do you actually have support from the rest of the executive team and potentially the board to actually be behind this expansion? It can't just be you, because inevitably lots of the organization is going to need to be behind it. And that's a really, really core first step to any expansion to this region, which often is so many time zones away. The second point is, are you even ready contractually to start transacting in these regions? And that really goes down to, are your contracts Asia ready in order to do business in this broad market? The third piece is, do you have your marketing content which is localized? That doesn't mean translated, but it does mean, is it adapted for the market in question using the vernacular that you actually need to talk competently to the local market, which might speak in a very different language and terminology than perhaps you're used to in your home markets. Next, we talk about, well, what's the selling approach? In your home markets, you might be used to selling directly. Well, over here in Asia, it's a little bit different. There's actually 49 countries in Asia, believe it or not, as per the Atlas. And as such, it's really essential to have partnering as a core piece of your strategy. And so the question around how you sell, be that directly to end customers and transacting with end customers, transacting online through your website, or then through partnering, is a really important piece of the puzzle that you have to have prepared before you come and have those conversations in market. You could have 1,000 people doing direct sales in this region and you still wouldn't have enough. Such is the vast geography of this space. But then within partnering, that also has its nuances. There are distribution companies, there are resellers, there's OEMs where you become essentially a product within a principal vendor, and there's also just simple referral agreements. So what's it going to be? If you're going to come into this region to indeed come into this market with a channel strategy, you really have to have that figured out with those partner categories defined and the playbook as to how you're going to deal with those different types of partners, because they're all geared in slightly different ways. And then the last piece is actually, how are you going to resource that locally? Are you going to have people here from your own headcount? Are you going to just rely on the partners and service that from a distance? Or are you going to actually contract with perhaps a third-party specialist that can do some of that business development execution on your behalf whilst you wait for enough of a business case to indeed hire your own team here? The next piece of this session is to talk about product localization. Asia is vast in size and broad, and really when you look at the number of markets here in terms of where really are we going to be able to sell our product, yes, there are 49 countries in this region. You're probably not going to sell to all 49 of those countries. And I've seen over the years many founders and leaders come here with a very false assumption that in order to be successful here, they must localize their product into the local language. And whilst that is certainly a nice to have and definitely not a bad thing, it's not necessarily true, certainly not in Southeast Asia, that you need to localize your product. It's really going to be essential to speak to local partners, speak with your local pipeline and the direct opportunities that you're working on, and really understand deeply, do you actually need to localize your product either at the end user level or at the administration level? Because you may find out surprisingly that actually you don't need to localize at all. And that, of course, will reduce the speed of your entry and hopefully give you some more confidence that you can actually be successful in this region without necessarily putting a whole load of R&D and product development on supporting multiple versions of the product for different countries. Partnering readiness is going to be a topic that we cover quite a lot on the Fireside chat shortly. But just so that I make sure that I cover these points, in order to partner properly, there are several things that really need to be in place. You need to have a partner program with clearly set out commercial terms, etc. You ideally will be able to talk about how other partners of yours in your home market, or other markets for that matter, have been successful, and tell a case study, not about how well your product's being used by a customer, but how a partner has grown their business by partnering with you. It's partner marketing 101, but it's really important and very few people do it, believe it or not. Also, do you have partner contracts? If you don't, certainly create them. It could be a distribution agreement, it could be a reseller agreement, it could be an OEM agreement, it could be a referral agreement. Be ready, because those different types of partners will want different types of agreements, and frankly, they can't all be put into one umbrella. Sales enablement tools and collateral are really key to partners. In order for partners to be successful, you're going to need to provide playbooks. You're going to need to show evidence of how you've done deals yourself in your home markets so that your partners can be mentored based on that and basically follow from your example. But the only way they're going to be able to do that is to document it. And that comes in the form of sales tools, assets, potentially some tools, some videos and such like. But enabling the sales force of partners is a really key piece of what you need to do. It's often under budgeted for, but ultimately your partners are an extension of your sales team. And the only way they're going to be successful, just like the only way your salespeople will be successful, is if you enable them properly. Also ensure that you've allocated partner marketing budget for events, trade shows, focused events that partners might be organized. Often it's just a budget item that is missed. Also figure out, well, how are you going to actually track that activity from partners in this new region? What's the deal registration process? How are you going to ensure that from a channel conflict point of view, we've got one partner owning an opportunity for how long and not another? Another important step of this is you may well be receiving inbound opportunities coming in either from the website or elsewhere. And so it's important also that when you're establishing a partner network here, that you come bearing gifts. It's really important that as a quid pro quo to a partner taking on your product, you could also be seen to be offering them opportunities that perhaps you've received, can't manage yourself because you're from a distance. And that act of giving is a really good step as a first act of trust building certainly when establishing the new partnerships. And then the last piece is, well, how do you handle that channel conflict? When that happens, what are you going to do? What's the playbook? You know it's going to happen eventually. It might be that to begin with you say, well, we're just going to have one partner per country, not exclusive. Absolutely never do exclusivity if you can possibly help it. But maybe just to start on that to avoid this channel conflict scenario, at least give partners confidence that they are the only partner in the region that you're working with. I mentioned the need for your marketing team to help localize the message. This is also really important. It's imperative that you have good current case studies from your home market in order to give confidence that your product's going to be a good product for this region too. That building on trust and buying off trust is just a really, really big thing in this region. I would suggest you have at least 2, ideally more than that, documented that you can speak to. And best case scenario, try to tie those case studies to this market. I appreciate you might not have customers in Asia yet. And so we'll say, well, how do we do that? How do we build an Asia context into an existing customer story? Well, you never know. If you actually just dig a bit deeper, you may find out that there's 1 or 2 users over here. You may find out that existing customers of yours have already got a branch office over here. Claim it, because any hook that you can bring in to make your product relevant to this market so that it just lands and resonates that much better is important. And the fact that just the act of trying and attempting to do that is a really important step in showing this market that you've thought about it and that you care. You're not coming in with a big European story or a big American story and how great your product's been there. Yes, you're talking about that as a core concept, but you're really letting the market know that you care about this market. You're treating this market with the respect that this market would expect. And you only do that by showing commitment to the region, by at least trying to understand how this would apply to this market. And so even if after trying to create a link to those existing customers of yours elsewhere and you can't find one, it's possible, no matter how hard you try, but it could also be through a holding company, it could be through a venture investment company, just try to find a link. But if you can't, at least create a page, a piece of collateral that can explain to the target market here about why Asia is important to you. That will show commitment, it will show that you're thinking about it, and ideally within that content, within that asset to use, you will at least show before you've come to this region that you've thought about it, you care about it, and you're treating the market with the respect that it deserves. That completes my session today. I hope you found that useful, and I'm looking forward to the next section of this.
So, Steve, the joke that I heard is that whenever someone's doing market entry into Singapore, the most iconic things they think of are Marina Bay Sands, Merlion, Salted Egg, and Steve Dawson. So I'm very, very glad that I'm sitting here in front of you today. I guess can I start by asking this? What's your background story? How did you come to be doing what you're doing? What made Asian market entry?
Yeah, no, thanks. And thanks for having me. I set up Asian Market Entry. Well, to go back, Asian Market Entry is a company that helps technology companies expand into Asia, number one. Not just helping with incorporation and things like that. That's kind of not actually what we do. What we do is we're helping companies grow revenue and be accountable to that revenue and be accountable to those targets and essentially providing sales execution power in the absence of companies being here because they don't have the business case to be here, right? But the reason why I set the company up, this was back in 2016, was because it came from a position of personal pain in that in 2012, I'm from the UK, as you'll be able to tell from my accent, And I, on the back of I'd been working in software sales in London, and on the back of a couple of Hail Mary deals back then that I'd closed from the UK, but they were in Asia, got the gig to be able to move to Singapore on my own. It wasn't really in the plan, and I was basically just asked to go, and became the first person on the ground, unbudgeted, but someone had to do it, and it was on me. Great. It was always in the master plan, but apologized later, and frankly, it all worked out. But of course, on arrival, you realize how hard it was, because I was on my own. I had no real support other than people flying in, flying out occasionally to support me from pre-sales and subject matter expertise. I was very much going out to grow the market on the back of these two customers. I was like, my goodness, this is such a big place. I had to do so many things. I mean, I came from a position of professional services initially, got myself into business development and handling channel. And I ended up in Singapore just having to do everything, right? You're running your P&L, you're having to travel all the time, you're a booth boy at events, you're speaking, you're cold calling, you're doing your outreach. But Asian Market Entry was born to productize that. The idea of a third-party versatility sales team who can do all of those things, marketing, channel, direct sales, and just generally be accountable for the number, but without necessarily having the need for tech companies to have their own headcount. And very much be a bit of a stepping stone, a proving ground, build the business case to allow companies to ultimately then hire and then move us on after we'd done our part and got them to first revenue. So that's why we're here, and 10 years later, still going strong.
Do you find that it just takes longer to get it off the ground, to get traction, grow a business in Asia Pacific compared to EMEA or the United States, and why?
I think EMEA and the US have got similar traits in that the speed in which decisions get made, the transient nature of people in roles, and the movement of people in roles in both Europe and especially in America is such when you're a technology buyer, a CIO or a CTO, with the movement of those roles to new regions, there's much more propensity and impulse to buy, to make an impression in those new roles. And I'm of a firm belief that that's one of the reasons why the buying culture there is so much stronger, because of that nature. Now over here it's very different. Companies and the people in companies are very loyal to those companies. Yes. And they don't like to take rash decisions. To build the trust and the relationship in order to make a big decision to make any kind of impact in their role, it's just a little bit different, because those individuals are often there for life. Yep. And will continue to be there for life. And your solution that you're trying to sell them isn't necessarily going to be the be-all and end-all for them, because they're not going to want to make an impression, because they're there anyway and they're going to continue to be there. So I believe that that is a fundamental blocker of deals. Well, maybe not a blocker, but it certainly slows deals down, because frankly, the whole region is just more risk averse. And I believe that that's a fundamental piece of that.
Can I just give you my take on my observations on that? And I will ask you about, what do you find is the difference in the selling style between the US, let's just say London, where I love the selling style there, and Asia Pacific. I completely agree with you. Like, I know this is somewhat of an outlier, but Japan. People stay with the same company for 30 years. That's what the culture is. And I hadn't thought about it that in the US or the UK, a CTO can move to another role and they want to make an impression. Whereas I have found that in Asia Pacific, they don't want to necessarily make a mistake. That they're more than happy to continue with the status quo. They don't need to take that sort of a gamble or a risk. So that when it comes to doing market entry into APAC, one of the mistakes that I see is that US or UK companies, they don't actually localize how to do their go-to market. And they don't understand how the selling style is actually different. For me, in Asia, people buy on social proof. There's a resistance to being the first company to make the purchase. They want to see that they've worked with other businesses. They want to see that they've actually got local partners, or they're committing to the region. Like as an example, in South Korea, if you don't have a local partner to show you're committed, pretty much no chance. Indonesia, the same thing. Japan, the joke I make is it takes 30 yeses to get to an okay in sales, but you kind of need to work with a SoftBank or a Mitsubishi Bank. That's what my observations have been, how it's different. I'd like to just get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's certainly one. Another one is just budget cycles. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Japan in particular. The budget cycles are very rigid. Unlike in the US and Europe, budget isn't so readily created in order to make decisions quickly, because there's an incentive for the end of the quarter, like we're so used to in Europe and the US. It's just different. There's a far longer term play in decision making. There's certainly that consensus in order to do that. And as a result, if budget's available next year, it will only be spent next year. It won't be brought forward. And I think that's another common mistake that I see from international visitors coming here and just trying to move that budget into an earlier stage. It just doesn't really happen.
I actually have seen that it just takes longer to get Asia Pacific off the ground. So a lot of companies get impatient and then they pull out. But then I've actually seen the flip side, that Asia Pacific is actually one of the rare profitable regions for tech companies, because you sell it at USD, but it's a significantly lower OPEX that if you actually wait it out, first of all, in a market like Japan, don't worry about 3-year license deal, let's just do a 6-year license deal. That's some enormous size. So if you actually wait it out, because you've got longer deals, you've got a longer annual contract, so on multiple years, like 5 years, and because, let's say you're selling in Australia or Singapore, you're still selling it in USD, that the margins on the products are significantly larger. So I've seen a lot more businesses be profitable in APAC if you can get over that initial part, which goes on to the next topic of how you get over that initial part, which is something that you and I both strongly believe in, and that is, what is the importance of partnerships for doing market entry into APAC? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, partnering, so far as I'm concerned, is essential. It's not always something that companies from other regions have done.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they haven't needed to. Maybe they're just selling in a single language market. Maybe they just haven't wanted to give margin away because they haven't needed to, because of the way they sell. But over here, it's very, very different. It's number one, it's relationship based over here. So buyers here want to buy from people that they've bought from before, and that is often in the form of a reseller who has supplied them with products historically. Furthermore, the partners that are here are extremely focused on maintaining trust and long-term lifetime value of what those companies, of what those relationships need to be. The other key point around this is that Asia is just vast. Yeah. I mentioned in the Masterclass that there's 49 countries in Asia, believe it or not, if you look at the atlas. And then more when you start adding in New Zealand and Australia, which often gets bundled in. And you know, yes. if you've got only one person handling that, or even 100 people, you're still not going to have enough. Yeah. Because to cover that ground and to cover all of the markets and the different cultures and the different even just the different languages that exist, just in India alone, let alone everywhere else. It's just an impossible task. And so really, even if a company is anti-partnering because it's seen as giving margin away, and you know, I get it, and our partners haven't always had the best reputation. They can sometimes run interference and can seem to be competitive, but that mind shift just simply has to change for this region. And it might take some time and win some hearts and minds of certain people in the organization to make that happen, but make no mistake, partnering is absolutely essential, because if you try to do it yourself, you're just not going to get very far. I would certainly, given margin away, and let's assume we're giving away a margin of 30%, I would far rather have 70% of something versus 100% of nothing.
I completely agree. I ask companies, do they have a channel strategy? And if they ask me, what's a channel strategy? Usually I just say, sorry, I can't help you. The challenge that I find is when I'm explaining this companies from, let's just say, US or Western Europe, they're like, why would we give leads to another company? To which I need to explain, I'm not saying that you need to give leads, but you need to actually nurture those partners, and that could be partner evangelization and events, because simple reason, that's how you do go to market in Asia. Yeah. You have to work with local partners, and whether that's systems integrators, distributors, there has to be something in it for them. You can't just fly in, hey, I've got this amazing product, can you go and sell it? The answer is no. The reality is, like, what's the actual strategic value add back to me? And if companies knew that up front, they'd get Asia they'd make Asia profitable much, much, much faster. This is the reason why you need to know and understand what local go-to-market looks like in APAC. It's an amazing region. It's a highly profitable region, but what works in the US or the UK is not what's going to work in Asia. So you need to know that up front. That's my firm belief, obviously.
Yeah, and I mean, if I may, there's a further degree of sophistication even beyond that, which is, okay, conceptually, let's say we all agree to do partnering because it makes sense, because of the scale, the relationships all over the world. We all want an army of salespeople within our partner groups to be able to sell what we want them to sell ultimately. But another big mistake that I see for companies that do partnering or have just started doing partnering is that they get fixated on talking about their product to partners.
Yes.
Now we could talk about, so resellers, SIs, Big Four, whatever. And if you really break it down, yes, you need to be aligned to a partner. You certainly do. You need to be in the same sphere of influence. But frankly, a lot of these partners don't care what your product does, really, because they've got lots of products that they can resell. In the case of some of the larger ones, I mean, I know some that have got literally over 10,000 SKUs of products that they resell as part of their core service. So how do you get the attention, right? I mean, do you really think that a salesperson for a company that's got 10,000 other things that they can sell care that deeply about what your product actually does? And no one's saying that it's not irrelevant. Of course it's not. The product obviously has value. It's got its place. But it's useful to the end buyer, the end user. It's not useful to the salesperson that's selling it. What's useful to the salesperson who's selling it is how you're going to help them hit their number. How are you going to really understand how that salesperson is going to benefit from selling your product to their customers? So it's a full-time job just to do that for one partner, to do it properly. But then, of course, if you have 5, 10, 20 partners, to go really deep, it's like a full-time partner management role at an enterprise-grade level. But that's what's needed. That's literally what's needed to earn the right to go to every salesperson in the organization who can then hopefully, even if you get a handful of them, if you can get them talking to their account base, because you've earned that right by just learning deeply about what they want, you'll be amazed at how quickly that behavior can change. Because you've earned it, and because I guarantee no one else is doing it.
I love it. 2 sayings that I mean 3, but it's kind of 2. When it comes to APAC, your product is absolutely irrelevant. The only thing that really matters is your go-to-market. Your go-to-market is going to shape your product. You will speak to customers in the region and they will tell you what it is that they're looking for in tailoring the product. So go-to-market trumps product any day. And the other one is, well, what's in it for the other person, or what I more colloquially call sell based on the person's KPIs. If you don't understand what the KPIs are of the person you're sitting in front of, let's say it's a partner manager of a company you're trying to work with. What are they KPI'd on? Bringing on board new customers, growing the brand awareness of the business, and also bringing in revenue opportunities. If you know what the other person is KPI'd on, help them get their KPIs, because then they're going to reciprocate back. If it's a salesperson that's working for a reseller, what are they KPI'd on? Well, making as many sales, but also making sales where they get the highest cut of margin. Like, guess what? If you're paying 5% on a 1-year deal and another company's paying 30% on a 5-year deal, guess which one they're going to sell? So if you know and understand the KPIs, that's when you can solution sell it and create that win-win sort of a deal where now you're adding value to them, but now they're hungry and motivated to be going out there and pushing your product. I don't think that this is necessarily just an APAC thing. It is somewhat of a global thing. I just find that it's magnified in Asia Pacific, and that's what a lot of businesses just don't think about.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that they don't do, I was just talking more about on the enablement front. So certainly how do you get that mind share? But this also goes into the partner recruitment as well. What are you going to bring to the table to the partner to even go into an agreement in the first place? And that comes down to partner marketing. And so another piece that I see, another mistake that I often see is companies coming over with a very strong marketing story for their end user, heavily focused on the product, lots of case studies about how it's helping their customers. But do you know what I want to see? I want to see case studies about how partners in other regions have grown their business 10x because of partnering with you. If you can tell that story and explain how, as a result of the partnership that another partner has had with your organization in France, well, great. That's what they actually want to hear. Your product does come into it, of course. It has to go through its technical due diligence. It has to pass all the assessments, but I'm going to assume all the products are great. But ultimately, the partner really, beyond that, there's lots of good products in the market that they could choose from. How do you differentiate? You've really got to tell that story and help explain to the partner how you're going to help them grow their business. And that's it. And if you can't do that, just change your marketing story so that you can tell that story. And if you don't have a case study, at least set a vision of what that could look like, given that you're now going to be super focused on partnering, because over here you're simply going to have to be.
Then, look, I'm guessing between the both of us, we've seen a lot of companies that have come into Asia Pacific and been wildly successful. And then we've seen a lot of companies that come into APAC and they balls it. What do you think are the biggest mistakes companies make? And what would you say the advice that you would give, outside of course, partnering, in terms of what a business would need to do, like even step by step to make it successful? So mistakes and advice that you'd provide to companies that are looking at market entry.
Good question. And another one that I feel quite deeply on. One of the major mistakes that I see is companies coming over to this region because someone or a department or a senior individual has gone renegade and decided that Asia is a good idea. And it probably was a good idea, but they've made a mistake from the beginning because they haven't necessarily brought everyone along for that ride. And as a result of that, by not having that consensus and that whole support structure as they've gone into this Asia expansion, even if it's just flying in and flying out, I've seen often that the ability for companies to get support and to service this market properly from their home base with resources from across the organization, from pre-sales for demos. Guess what? You've got to do your demos at 3 a.m. Well, someone's not going to be happy about that, I assure you. Not unless you relocate them here, which they'll probably be delighted about. But yeah, you're going to need pre-sales. You're going to need marketing help. You're going to need your lawyers to do red lines at all hours of the day. Your product team are going to start receiving requests from partners about this funky stuff that you're going to need to suddenly build into the product. But you need to listen because your partners are telling you that really is needed for that local use case. You're also going to need help from your technical support team. You're going to need help from the professional services group to support the partners on their implementation. And so when that's all not set up, when the deal flow starts, it can all kind of unwind quite quickly because there's resentment, people haven't been brought along for the ride, they're overworked, they get stressed because of having to support this new market in all hours of the day. And I think there's a really big exercise and task there for the local team in market. Let's assume you've got one person to just educate and coach, not just the sales group, which is normally the first people on the ground, but actually take that story to the whole group back home and explain why Asia is important to each and every one of them and why they're also an essential part in the success here.
I'll tell you my findings. So hiring mistakes, companies, they overcommit. So they launch with very, very senior and expensive managing director who then is going to say...
And this, by the way, I agree.
Yeah, and then they're going to say, I need all of that local support straight away and up front. But then you've got SDR, you've got marketing, you've got all of that. You're now paying something like $2 million in salaries. Great, now go and sell. And guess what? VCs will be expecting, okay, where's the results at? That you've got a short time frame to then make it work. So when companies overcapitalize, that's a mistake. The reverse of that, what I've seen makes businesses successful is if they do it in a logical, methodical, measured basis. when companies just don't localize to go to market for APAC, you can't charge what you can in the United States in Indonesia, and you can't charge that in South Korea. Like, you need to actually get your pricing right. You need to tailor your go-to-market strategy, because breaking into all of those markets is very, very different. Japan is like a different planet. There's nothing quite like it anywhere. South Korea is different. Going into China is different. I'd say Singapore and Australia probably have the most sort of parallels. Hong Kong to a certain extent, but Hong Kong I find is very heavily channel driven, so you kind of need to know what the actual localization go-to-market looks like, and that's why I strongly recommend working with an expert who's actually been there and done that, that can guide them through that success. So it's not knowing what to do, it's overhiring, it's hiring people that are just the wrong people or overpaying for it, as opposed to just work with someone who actually knows and understands what to do, because then it's going to de-risk a lot of this for you. It's going to help to set and manage the expectations, and it just sounds like quite logical advice. Just work with people who've actually done it.
Well, you're bang on with the, this Hail Mary idea that you can hire someone and expect all of these miracles for all of the reasons I gave when I was talking about my own background. You've got to do it all. And senior people, unfortunately, just often don't want to do that. No. They're overqualified. Yeah. And so at least accept that if you're going to put a senior person in, it can work for some, not for others, but if that senior person is going to be there, ensure that they've got the right support around them, either from other people, headcount, agencies, or whatnot, because expecting someone just to bring back miracles, given all of those tasks that have to happen, not just in the place where they happen to live, but in all of the other places where you're also trying to sell software, it's a really big ask. But most companies, when they come here, hire one person.
I wonder why it doesn't work.
So, you got to start somewhere. But, does it need to be a senior person, who's got ex-Google on their LinkedIn profile? Probably not.
Steve, look, I love what you do. I think it adds tremendous value to the country, and companies need it. If you're thinking about doing market entry into Asia, you should be speaking with someone who actually knows what they're doing, who's done it before, and who's helped to guide multiple companies through this. That's got that formula, got the playbook. I guess that's why we love working with you. So on behalf of the audience, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Wow, what a session you had with Steve. I particularly like his backstory. He essentially came in and he was paid to get his job done. He realized that he couldn't get his job done as well as he really wanted to, and he turned that problem into a solution, and that solution into a company that's obviously doing very well right now. And he's helping others solve the same big problem that he had. Right, I think that is a lovely story and a hallmark of a great business and a great entrepreneur. Right, so Steve, I'd love to catch up with you soon again to get deeper into understanding more of your story. Yeah, so he's providing lots of value to help companies figure out their APAC expansion. Right, and some things that I learned from Steve, right, is partnerships is the way to go, right? Figuring out your partnership strategy, figuring out your channel partnership strategy, finding that local partner. And I love this part about him saying that you need to know what motivates your partners, 100%. Right? Understand their KPIs. I think that's what you said, right? Yeah. Understand the KPIs and how you can add so much value to them, and that they will be so motivated to help you. right? And something very close to my heart, obviously, is localization. And Steve mentioned it so clearly. It is not translation. It's not about translation. It's about localizing it to the market that you're trying to penetrate and do really well in, right? Because in localization, you take care of the context, you take care of what's in interest for the people in these markets, and you understand all of that. Because your product could exactly be the same, but how you communicate your offerings to the market could be so different, right? So it's localization, not translation. Translation, you can get it done with something like ChatGPT and stuff like that. But localization, you always want someone in market to read and understand your materials so that they can put it out in context, right? Yeah, and these days with the tools of AI, it makes this job a little easier, but don't skip the step of having that in-market person review it, right? So that's super important. And the last big thing that I took away from is expansion is a team effort. You need alignment all across. It's not good to just have one person who's out there hustling. You want the buy-in and the support of everyone else, even if they're supporting from home base, right? They need to know that this expansion is of priority, and the back room needs to pull in resources, even if it's in a different time zone, right? So those are the big things that I took away from this session. Yeah. What about you? What's your own experience with clients, and what are some other mistakes that you see some of these clients trying to work out their APAC expansion?
Oh man, where do I even start with this? On the topic of localization, it's something which I very, very strongly agree with you on, because something that I've seen companies get wrong is you can translate it, but that doesn't mean that you've localized it. So as an example, I've seen an American company come into Australia, and yes, it's in English, but it's not in the way that Australians speak English. So as an example, it was a wealth tech company, and was selling to pensions, which we don't refer to them as pensions in Australia. And then I've seen a Singaporean prop tech company that was talking about how you could be listing your condo and landed where they're called apartments and houses. So translation and localization is a very, very different thing, but it's also like being able to localize it. Like, as an example, I just got back from South Korea, where there's 3 predominant accents in South Korea, and you would need to also be able to tailor it to the local region that you're selling into. But in terms of biggest mistakes that I've seen, it's companies that just don't know how to do it. Like, I've said this before, the way that people buy in Asia is different to the way that people buy in other parts of the world. Like, every single country is different. And for me, partner-led go-to-market is the simplest, leanest, most effective way of being able to scale a business. If you know and understand what the other partner wants, and you're able to structure it in such a way that it creates a real hook and an incentive, then it's boom time, baby. Like, as an example, I speak to US companies and they love to be able to get into Japan. Extremely high net wealth market. It's one of the hardest markets on the planet. The joke I say is that in sales it takes 8 no's to get to a yes. In Japan it takes about 30 yeses to get to an okay. And it's because it's different, but that's the reason why you need to be able to work with local in-market partners. So you need to work with like a SoftBank, or you need to work with like a Mitsubishi Bank. In South Korea, you want to be able to sell through an SK Telecom. In Hong Kong, which is very heavily channel driven, especially because it's now very much seen as the gateway for being able to get into mainland China, that you want to be able to leverage like a Jardine Matheson. It's all about finding who are the local players that are dominating within a market, and how can you structure a win-win agreement, add something of value back to them to be able to scale. Some of our clients that we've seen do this, Indonesia normally is a very, very difficult market. We saw Flutterflow, which is on course to become a unicorn, do very well because they were able to leverage Google to be able to take them into market and open up deals. Speaking of deals, my client Deal, which is EEL, now the fastest growing SaaS company on the planet, and we helped them to open up 10 markets in Asia Pacific. And that was by leveraging referral partners and affiliate partners. So what we found is that if you can land something like 6 partnerships in a new market, you've now found product market fit. If you haven't found it, then before you even need to start putting boots on the ground and testing and trying to sell it, you can find out in this really cost-effective way, if partners are interested in being able to sell it, then chances are customers are going to be interested in wanting to buy it. And to be fair, we actually haven't seen the strategy fail. The only time we've seen the strategy take longer is Japan, but everything just takes significantly longer in Japan. So yeah, that's what I'd say would be the best practice and some of the mistakes. It's just not realizing that it's something which you need to do, raising a significant amount of money, being very cowboy with it. Here's 50 million, go and expand Asia Pacific, and then investors start getting worried on where is the money, why are we burning through so much cash? And it really is just because you haven't learned to be able to adapt to the local region. Like Asia is one of the most lucrative markets on the planet. The purchasing power of Asia is actually greater than the rest of the planet combined. It's an amazing region. Not a lot of people know that fact, but it's just knowing how to be able to do it. So that's why I obviously completely agree with what Steve is saying, what you're saying. So I hope that answered your question.
Definitely. So we'd like to invite people on the call to leave your questions and leave your comments so that we can address them live as well. Right. So can we have a check with someone on the team? Is there any questions coming in? So okay, we've got our first questions in from Ignatius. Right. So Steve talked about giving back to the partners before we even receive. How would such a situation like that look like? I kind of can picture this. Right. If I'm knowing this person for the first time, what can I give that's useful and increase my odds of partnering with him? And not end up on the losing end?
I hear this question very often. For me, it's reframing the way in which you think about partnerships, because it's not about somebody losing, it's about everybody being able to win. There's a number of ways that you can structure a partnership agreement. So for example, one of the common ways when it comes to Asia market entry, who are customers that sell to the exact same customer base as what we do from a 100% complementary angle? Let's say we're a company from the UK, here's a company in Southeast Asia, ASEAN company has no customers in the UK, UK company has no customers in ASEAN. You can just do a straight up win-win, no money down, referral agreement, where we can help you to get traction in UK, you help us to get traction in Southeast Asia, both of us have just validated and opened up a new market and no money needs to change hands. That's one example where, say, you've got territorial advantage. In others, it could be you have access to a customer base that they don't have access to. You have access to a technology solution that enhances what it is that the other partner does. The way that you need to think about it to be able to effectively win partners is, what is something that we uniquely have that we can add of value to the other partner? Because when you lean in offering something of value, it becomes very easy to then nurture and grow and scale the relationship. It's something which we did. It's something that's worked extraordinarily well for us. And not every single partner is going to be super successful. Like, I don't recommend partnering with large companies, because the larger that a company is, the less they really care about a smaller startup. It's just true, right? Yes, you can work with like an Amazon Web Services or a Google Cloud, and they can help to run events and conferences around you. So yes, that's quite beneficial. But it's not going to be the same as, let's say, a smaller business, which equally needs you as much as you need them. So I would reframe the way that I look at it. It's not about somebody winning or losing. It's about having a conversation on how we're actually going to be able to win together. And partners that don't reciprocate, just don't work with them. But what you will find is partners that really, really, really reciprocate. And I've honestly found that for every $1 of value I've given to a partner, I must have gotten like $5 back. So it's been instrumental in growing and scaling my own business.
Fantastic. 1:5. Did
Yep.
you hear that right?
Yep.
Wow. So maybe isn't it a bad idea to start giving first?
Yeah.
And you will receive. And from your example, 1:5. That sounds awesome.
Yep. Well, it's the law of reciprocity. So it's
Yeah.
one of the styles of influence. So how we were talking about in Asia, people buy on hierarchy. It's Robert Cialdini influence. It's one of the ways of being able to sell. It's basically selling on reciprocity. And I'm obviously a big fan of it, so I'm going to stop talking because I think you get my passion on it.
Okay, the next question just came in. What would a channel conflict look like? How does it typically occur? And what can we do to prevent it, assuming that we are working with more than one partner in the region? Right. I'd love to have your thoughts. I have some thoughts of my own as well.
Yeah. So the answer to this is a channel conflict is when you're working with two companies that basically do the same thing. So there's going to be somewhat of like, you're working with two competitors. Now, the honest answer to that, it goes back to what the question was asked above. Work with the people who most want to work with you. You don't need to work with every single company. You don't even need to work with large companies. You only really need one good partner, and that's going to be transformational with you in any region. So channel conflict occurs when you try and get too many and you start working with companies who are competitive to one another, which I don't recommend doing. I instead much more recommend initially testing the water, but focus on adding the value and honing in and nurturing those like if you see that they're reciprocating back to you, then you start nurturing, you start focusing, and you start growing. So you shouldn't have the example of a channel conflict. You don't need to work with everyone. You just need to work with the ones that are most motivated to be working with you. That's my take.
Right, and my simple take is, I think a huge part to prevent channel conflict is how things are onboarded. Obviously, from a brand point of view, from a product owner point of view, you don't want to be signing away exclusivity right from the start. But from the channel partner point of view, if they are putting in their own marketing funds to help open the market, then they expect exclusivity because they could be putting in a lot of resources, opening up the market, and in comes in the second wave that you open up to other people. Right. So I think it's onboarding them right, getting a co-marketing fund available to in a way such that it becomes both a win-win, that the channel partner has skin in the game, as well as they are interested to help you push and you reciprocate, right? So I think we both have the same terminology that there's reciprocity, that both parties must win.
Yep.
But I strongly think how the communication is happening, that you don't want to sign away your exclusivity, but you put in terms, if they're helping you grow, that's great, right? Isn't it? So I've had some of my own business gotten into such a situation of some form of channel conflict, and there were some disagreements. It didn't become a win-win in the end, but in another particular product, we had great synergy that both parties are in it together, right? So that's how it went.
This is a very interesting next question coming up. So it's from Subhas. I hope that I'm pronouncing it properly. Is it even possible to get everybody on board with the expansion plan? So as an owner, my motivation is different from my employees. It's an interesting question, right? How do I position the expansion such that it's going to be in their best interests? As let's face it, if I'm an employee, I would hate to do more work. Would you like to kick this one off?
Okay, right. So you're absolutely right that if I'm an employee, I would hate to do more work, right? So from I'm going to assume this is a startup and a scale up, right? This is not a massive 2,000 people company. If it's a 100 people company or 200 people company, I think it is the job of the bosses or the managing team, the management team, to communicate what's in their best interests. In the world of communication, you don't communicate what you want, you communicate what's in their best interests, right? So what's in the best interest of the employee if the company grows overall? And you can break it down into phases that in 3 months' time, this is what we expect of you, and this is in your best interest because if we hit our KPIs, you'll get certain bonuses, you'll get certain these other things that matters to them, right? So it is quite crucial from the management point of view. You think about what's in it for the backroom. So in this case, I think we are quite clear. This is talking about the backroom players, right? And the backroom players could need to do a lot of work in the short term to be able to support. And the other answer would be work with a company like Steve Dawson's, right? That's the other company. I'll leave for you to elaborate.
Yeah. So on Steve Dawson, sure. My honest answer to that question is you probably should get yourself some new employees or learn how to better be able to communicate. The reality is, if you're a startup or a scale-up, people don't join a startup or a scale-up because they're expecting tremendous career growth. They join a bank for that reason. They join a startup or a scale-up because they want to see company growth. They want to be part of that growth. That's what attracts people to those kinds of businesses. So there's a number of ways of being able to structure it. So for example, if the company is growing and scaling into new markets, that then creates opportunities for international travel. If the company is scaling into new markets, if let's say you have an equity plan in place, when they open up or get traction in a new market, the valuation of the company goes up. So everybody is winning. It's creating opportunities for career advancement, for international travel, international development, as well as upswing on equity. And the other thing is, there's also a feel-good factor about the company when you see that a business is growing and stagnating. So my take on it is, if people don't necessarily want, they don't need to necessarily do more work if it's automatically tied into exactly what it is that you're doing anyway. That's why I weave international expansion into what I do. Like, if you're going to start a business, you may as well just go big. Like, otherwise, why bother starting a business? You may as well just think big from day one. So just weave in growth and scale automatically into your thinking. And that way, it's not needing to get people to do more work. It's just a natural part of their job. But if hitting a massive KPI or hitting a massive milestone or a goal was in conflict with your employees, then look, sack them. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, you're pretty blunt and straight, and that's what I love about you, right? Just don't beat around the bush. Get to the point.
Yeah, pretty much. And the next question we have is from Jamie. So what are the specific things that we can do to align the partner's KPIs to ours, and any examples that you can quote? So yeah, this is an interesting one because it depends on who the partner is. If you're looking at speaking to, let's say, a technology and alliance partner, if you're speaking to someone which is in charge of alliances and partnerships, they are literally KPI'd on getting new partners. That's literally what they're paid to do. If you're working with, let's say, a government partner, so let's say it's one of the trade associations in like Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, they're KPI'd on having companies be able to come into and expand into a new region. That if you actually understand what it is that they're KPI'd on, you know exactly how to angle the way that you're approaching and speaking to them. If you're talking to a cloud services provider, what does AWS, Google, or Microsoft want? This may shock you, but they want people spending more money on their cloud platform. So, who would have thought? So if you're able to come in and effectively state that, okay, using our unique contact networks, whatever it is, this is how we can get more people spending on it, then it doesn't have anything to do with what it is that you want. It's all around what they want, and they're a beneficiary of it. You're going to get ultimately what you want because it's going to help to drive new business for you. But that's kind of what I mean. If you know and understand what the other person's KPI'd on, give them what they want. And it's the simplest way of being able to win them over as a partner, win them over as a friend, and be able to grow and to scale.
And bring them out for a meal, bring them out for drinks, and ask them what they want.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you're paying, it tastes even better. Yeah. No, I think no more questions. So thank you to everyone for tuning into our webinar. So on the screen, you're going to see a poll coming up and help to make the next event even better by filling it up with some of your questions. And if you're interested in what we've shared today and would like to speak to us more about it, then do leave your contact details. We'll come back to you. Join us for our next exciting episode, which is taking place in January. I'm very, very excited by the person that we're getting to come in and to be speaking. So we thank you all for joining us. And any last words, Ming Song?
Yeah, so have a great holiday season. I know this month in December is a month of festivities, but a great time to catch up with all your network and contacts and make all these connections count. So until we see you again next year, have a good holiday.
Yep, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, enjoy your new year, and that's it. Let's make some money, honey.
Okay, see you.